The following episode of the Comics and Crypto podcast is for informational purposes only, and anything expressed by the hosts or their guests is solely their opinion. This podcast does not constitute financial advice, and anyone wishing to invest should seek their own independent financial or professional help. Have fun and enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Sean O'Hare, and I know comics.
Hi, I'm Spencer Vogel, and I know crypto.
Hi, I'm Kevin Lee Loader, and I don't know shit. This is the Comics and Crypto podcast.
Comics and crypto, crypto and comics, collectors world in a digital age. Comics and crypto, crypto and comics, it's where the next billionaires will be rich. Comics and crypto.
What is up, VEVE fam? I am so excited today. We are with an amazing special guest that is going to teach us about a market that I'm actually learning about myself. Jason Rindahl, video game expert.
Pleasure to be here. Excited to be here. Glad to talk to your folks.
We just spoke recently, introduced from a good friend, Joe Morelli. Big shout out to Joe. And we spoke for like 4 hours on the phone, and it was the most it was the most enlightening and just eye-opening conversation I've had in a long time. I mean, I was telling Kevin, we just recently went to a Comic-Con Revolution, and I, on the way up, was convincing about the video game market, and we'll dive into his feelings about that. And then on the way back, it was like, oh, okay, now it's all starting to make sense. So these are some of the record-breaking sales over the past year. And all these games are as a 9.8 grade. The first Halo game on Xbox, $108,000. Donkey Kong Country N64, $132,000. Mario Kart 64, $144,000. GoldenEye 007 on N64, $192,000. Sonic the Hedgehog on Sega Genesis, $360,000. Super Mario 64, $1.56 million. And Super Mario Brothers NES is a $9.82 million. This is insane. This is insane. I mean, this is unbelievable. I mean, this market, it feels so new, but these sales, man, they're turning heads.
Yeah, and they've gone through the roof just in the last 6 to 12 months. The acceleration has been absolutely incredible across the board with all, everything from a video game perspective.
When did you start investing in video games, and what made you recognize the potential for this market?
Yeah, so I'm going to go like way back in the day. And this will give your audience a good understanding of like why I'm actually here talking to both of you. So let's go back into the late 90s. And this is really kind of before eBay and before you could just find like a game from somewhere else. You literally had to, find it physically. You had to go somewhere and get it or know somebody. And it's really kind of a funny story. So back in the day, and think late 90s, maybe like 97, 98 timeframe, college days, we're all trying to make a little extra buck or whatever. And so there was a video game store, and this was before GameStop and EV Games. And this is when a lot of video game stores were like standalone, mom and pop shop type, etc. And so we would go into the video game store, which was right next to Target, and we got to know the owner. And so what we would do is we figured out that you could go into Target, and Target would clearance out their old video games. And so the price points would be, they would put a little red sticker and they would put it in the back of the store. And the price points would be either $1.91, $2.92, $3.93, or $4.94. And so you would have those prices for video games. And so this was kind of like the Nintendo 64-ish time frame. And so what we would do is we would go buy all their clearance video games, and we would literally walk next door to his shop, and we would sell him those video games for like $15, $20. They were brand new. They've never been open. He would display them in his store and sell them for, $30, $40, whatever the retail price was. And we always laughed about it because we were like, does he not know that he can just go into Target and get these games himself? So one day we went back in there, and they had just dumped a whole bunch of Turok games, the Nintendo 64 Turok. And so Turok has a special place in my heart for this specific reason. So we went in there and there was about 70 or 80 Turoks. We didn't have enough money to cover all of them. So what we did is I think we bought like 20 or 30 of them and we brought them next door and he bought all of the Turoks from us. And we paid like, I think $1.91. They were like really cheap.
Wow.
And so then we went back and we brought the rest of them. We brought them back and he looks at it. He's like, no more Turok, no more Turok. So we weren't able to. So we've always laughed about that over the years. And so that was kind of my first dabbling into, you know, buying video games at a lower price and selling them at a higher price. Well, fast forward maybe like a year or two. I started an eBay account back in 1998. I still have the same eBay account. I've been buying and selling video games since that time frame. And so where it started with me really was I went into Target one day and I went back and they had a video game called Lunar Silver Star Story. And at that time, that video game was selling for about $50 factory sealed. You didn't really refer to video games back then as factory sealed, but I'll refer to it as factory sealed. And so they had about 20 copies of it. And it was, I think it was a little bit higher. I think it was like $4, so $3.93. So I bought all 20 copies. And I remember the lady at Target checking me out. She's like, "Why are you buying all these video games?" And I was like, "Oh, I just, you know, I love this game. I'm a collector, etc." I didn't want to tell her, "Hey, I'm gonna put these on a new site called eBay and sell them to people all around the U.S." And so, you know, I bought those games up, and I flipped them on eBay for, you know, around $50 a piece. So when you're young, you're in college, and you're making 10x on your money right away. You know, that gets you thinking about things, you know, from a long-term perspective. And so that was my start of buying and selling and even collecting video games. Although, to be honest with you, I really regret selling all of those. I wish I would have kept them all because, you know, now factory sealed and graded are just, you know, through the roof. But, you know, when you're in college, you're just trying to make as much money as you can and trying to survive. So you don't think about that stuff. And definitely back then, like there were probably people that collected video games, but not anybody that you would know of. And you definitely wouldn't reference them. So that's how I got started.
Was there a moment when you saw like a specific sale that turned your head like, wow, okay, this is
okay.
Turning.
That's
here we go.
Question, man. That's an awesome question because you're going to think about what I'm saying and then you're going to think about what you just said earlier. So one of the big things that got me really interested in collecting video games and then also like flipping them more often was when eBay was getting going, and I started flipping just the, you know, $40, $50 games that I was finding at Target. I was looking at what are some of the expensive games going for, and my jaw dropped. I was like, "You kidding me? Somebody just sold a Nintendo original Legend of Zelda for $500?" I was like, "That is absolutely ridiculous." Now, good luck finding, you know, $500. But back then, you're thinking like, I was like, wow, somebody wants $500 for their original Mario game. So I started seeing video games that are starting to go between $500 and $1,000. And so, you know, games like rumored games, so like stadium events and things like that. So back in those days, like it was a lot of like rumors and, you know, information wasn't like it is now, and you weren't able to get things like it is now. So some games like in the past that were super rare, you can actually get them a lot easier now because you have things like eBay and Amazon, and you know the internet is super advanced after, you know, 20 something years. But yeah, that's what got me excited was look at these games and look what they're worth. And I never thought that I would sit here and look at $1 million sales. At least back then, I was thinking, wow, if I can find one that's worth $100 or $200, I can like flip it and pay for textbooks or pay my, you know, apartment bill or whatever. But but yeah, that's initially what got me into that.
What would you consider the most expensive game you've ever owned in today's standards that you sold like back in the day?
Oh, oh man, that's a good question. The most expensive game that well, I've actually owned a lot of the factory sealed Nintendo games.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So over the, I mean, when you've been buying and selling games since 1998, I mean, I, I can't think about the games that I let go because I'll that would make me just so I can't even think about that. That's a sad thing. But any of the original stuff, like I've had all the factory sealed Zeldas and Marios and
Wow.
all that. Ocarina of Time, factory sealed. Pretty much every PlayStation game I've had factory sealed. I actually have almost all, I have most of the PlayStation games factory sealed anyways, because that's kind of like my main focus. But like some of the big bombs have all been like Nintendo type games, and I've had most of those at some point or the other.
One of the biggest things that I really advocate is the importance of do your own research. And having resources like Go Collect, for example, has been a huge asset for me as an investor with comic books, because we're able to assess the market trends and past sales and help determine fair market value. But now they've recently announced that they're actually going to cover the reports for sales for WADA games, which is
Oh,
really
interesting.
exciting. It's still a bit new on the market right now on Go Collect, but that is a huge upside for the community. I know there's probably there's the 5 systems. I don't know if Dreamcast has value there, but we know that there's Sony, Sega, Xbox, Nintendo. What's your strategy? I mean, there's so much to absorb right now, right? I mean, aside from going for what you love as a collector and what you grew up with, as an investor, is there anything specifically you look for first and then kind of break your way down?
Yeah, and actually, so my strategy has changed. And by the way, when you're talking about video games, I don't know how many systems there are. There are, I mean, there are things that people have never heard of. Radio Shack RF. There's the
Yeah.
MSX. There's I mean, we could list all kinds of obscure stuff. There are video game systems and video games that are so obscure that they don't even have that much value because people have never heard of it and they don't realize it's an obscure video game. And so but there's actually a ton. But I have changed my strategy over the past year, and the reason I've changed my strategy is because of NFTs, really my thoughts around IP, and then also the tracking of video games, price from a sales perspective. Man, I would love that. So data is super important. And it's important across the board. And so having that data would be awesome for somebody like me because it will allow me to actually see the real data. So like in my mind, and this is what I've seen over the course of 20 years, what has happened is that you have open games, games that people have played, like complete open games, and then you have factory seal stuff. So if you look at, and I don't know the real data, I haven't analyzed the real data. This is just what I've seen as a trend, and this is just in my mind. But opened unsealed games, some of them have gone up, but not like unopened games. So factory sealed games, just take any game. Look at Super Mario Brothers 3 NES. Look at the price of an open copy versus a high graded unopened copy. There is a massive discrepancy in value there and price. And it's across the board with everything. And so when you think about it that way, you're like, okay, I actually used to have, in the past year, I've probably sold off about 4,000 to 5,000 opened games. And I did that for 2 reasons. One, the factory sealed game, the value is through the roof versus an open copy. And second of all, and this is something I don't think a lot of people talk about at all, but I've seen this really tick up in the market really in the last 5 years. is that there are so many counterfeits, and they're not just counterfeiting cartridges, etc. They are now counterfeiting like the art cover, the back. So like PlayStation games, you have an art cover on the back. You have a booklet, an art booklet, or the manual, you can refer to it as. Those are being counterfeited, etc. And so like if you're collecting video games, if you're going somewhere and somebody has a video game collection, you're not going to be able to be an expert in every single piece of that video game that has been opened. And so you're like, well, why is that important? Well, like there are many PlayStation games that are in the multiple $100 range that are open copies. And so the cool thing is like, so I determined from that, I'm only going to collect, factory sealed games going forward. And that is only leading into the integrated games. So if you ask me, like, what am I only collecting going forward? It's only going to be graded games. Any factory sealed games that I have, they're going to be analyzed so that I can get them graded. And the reason that I'm doing that is because everything is extremely subjective. Everybody has an opinion about everything. And so when you have a VGA or WADA game that is graded to be this, there's no debate and no argument. It is what it is. And plus they look cool in a case and all that. And so I think a lot of collectors, man, they love to display their stuff. And, the cases look good. They've got information on them. They're durable. Like, I can't tell you how many times somebody comes in this room and I'm like, like starting to chew my nails because they're touching one of my games that is not cased. But if you have a WADA case or a VGA case, go ahead, touch away. I don't care. It's sealed. It's it is. Yeah. And so I've moved away from that. I've moved towards the graded games as my sole focus on collecting. But I will also say that in the last several months, and this is what opened my eyes to this, is I've seen the NFT market. And I know you guys have probably talked a ton about that. Everybody talks about like IP and why would you buy this NFT versus that NFT. And I've realized that IP is very important as I've analyzed like the games that have gone up in value, the games that have significantly gone up in value. And if you, and like I said, these companies that you mentioned that are now analyzing the sales and the data, man, that's going to help the collector's market substantially, because then you can actually look at it and go, okay, this game XYZ versus Mario, why is there such a big gap in price, et cetera. And the reality is IP. So when you asked me earlier, like, what do I go for? Well, as a collector, I'm always going to collect what I like. I love, Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy stuff. So I don't care if the Final Fantasy game stinks. I'm going to buy it and I'm going to get it graded, and that's going to be in my collection, even if it loses money. Could care less. But like if you're looking at other things, like if you want to speculate on value, you can look at IP. So Mario is through the roof. I mean, Mario stuff is fantastic. Even modern Mario stuff is fantastic. All the Zelda stuff is awesome from a video game perspective. The Mega Man stuff is great. And then you also look at like game companies. And so I always really focused on collecting games from like a company called Koi. They're still around. I think it's KOEI. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, but I've always called it Koi forever. And they produced a lot. They produced a lot of like strategy NES games from back in the day, and those games really retain their value. And so, and we can talk a little bit about kind of the market. There is a very specific pattern that the market has done with video games since the dawn of video game time, and it's rinse and repeat. And I'll tell you about it here when you're ready for me to tell you about it. But you can Capcom games. People love Capcom games. Those hold their value. So like if you look at like the old Street Fighter games, Marvel versus Capcom, those games, so the value of those factory sealed through the roof on many of those. Capcom's a good one. Koei, Atlas games, so old Atlas games from like NES, PS1, Super Nintendo, N64, even PS2 Atlas games. For me, it doesn't, if it says Atlas or Koei, I'm buying it, even if I've never played it, because I like that genre. It's cool. It's a cool genre. Very strategic. Not one of those games that's going to be flying off the shelves, but they, from a speculation perspective, those retain and increase their value pretty well. And so those are good ones to have.
I'm a huge fan of the old Myst games. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know if you remember the Myst games. So yeah,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
interested in seeing what those are kind of going for at this moment.
I do have a few factory sealed PC games, and I love the old big box games. Old big box stuff is very valuable. Companies are now starting to grade the old big box PC games.
Nice.
If you ever find the old big box Fallout, don't grab it and run. That's an awesome one to have in your collection.
Wow.
Super tough to find, just the big box alone. If you find a factory sealed one, good, wow, lucky you. So the old Myst big box, but like Myst came out on PS1, and so factory sealed Myst game, I don't know what the exact price, but it would have to be in the few $100 range. And then if you got a graded one and it graded high with VGA or WADA, it'd probably go for a nice little penny. So
wow. So what is the difference between like VGA and WADA? What's the difference between those in terms of value?
Yeah, and there's actually a couple more. So there's a new company based out of Florida. I forget the name. There is another company that grades VHS tapes, which has caused the VHS market to go through the roof. And when I mean through the roof, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, wow.
VHS tapes have gone from you can't give them away, and I literally mean you can't give them away, to tens of thousands of dollars.
It's crazy.
Wow.
And they're starting to grade. Video games as well. They actually have my favorite looking cases, by the way. If you look at their case, the case and the label I like it. It looks really nice. There's actually more companies starting to sprout up, which is great, because when you talk about these things, like in the comic world, what helps you? Mass adoption. In the collector space, what helps you? Mass adoption. Nobody, growing up, did I know anybody who collected video games? No, I had no idea, but I did it anyways. And what helps with those values? Mass adoption. And then these companies that are now grading these games, mass adoption. And so kind of the differences, or they're both awesome. They're both awesome for the gaming community. VGA started around 2006, 2007 timeframe, and they originally, and they still do, they grade toys. And so if you have factory sealed toys, and I'll give you an example. Let me see. Oh, so this is what a graded toy looks like. So this is a Final Fantasy US edition of exactly.
Yeah.
And this is actually a really high grade, etc. You don't find the US versions as much, like most of these, and these are not super rare. Like when my opinion on rare stuff is like, I'll show you some rare stuff, and when you go on eBay, you might not find it, or you might find one copy. Like a lot of people throw around, oh, it's rare, but like all you have to do is go on eBay, or if you pay enough, you're going to be able to find it. This one's, you're not going to find as many of the US versions of this as you would like the Japanese release and the Japanese version. But this is AFA, and this is VGA's parent company. And so they started grading toys like in the later 90s. So they've been grading for well over 20 years. And then around 2006, 07, they started grading video games. And I actually didn't know that they had just kind of gotten started. I stumbled upon them so I purchased a big lot of Nintendo games from somebody, and then was networking and networked with them, and actually purchased a big lot of Nintendo video games from one of their partner companies. And they were telling me, oh, I can get these graded, and they introduced me to VGA, and so then I started getting stuff graded from them. And so they've been doing that for, you know, quite a while. And then WATA is relatively new, but WATA has a lot of very long-term video game collectors, a lot of experts in the industry, folks at WATA, and VGA too. VGA has a lot of folks that are, wow, they know everything about video games and variations. And if you bring them a Star Wars toy, they're going to be able to break that thing down to like the micro components. It's insane what these folks know. Same with WATA. A lot of experts, you know, kind of got together, built this company, and just a wealth of information, you know, and even I learn a lot of stuff from, you know, from listening to, you know, both of those organizations and what they come out with. And WATA's kind of like the new cool kid. VGA's been around a long time. They don't have as much, their marketing presence is not nearly what WATA's presence is. WATA has like much more significant marketing, social media presence. You know, they've kind of been out there a lot, partner with heritage auctions. A lot of the WATA games are being sold on heritage auctions, etc. And so they're kind of the new up and coming, both good, both great. If people tell me, you know, people ask me all the time, where should I send it, WATA or VGA? And I'm like, hey, send them both. If you have 2 copies of games, send one to VGA, send one to WATA, you know, or vice versa. You should, you know, I think you should have some of each. So
yeah, that's so
rating
fascinating.
system is different though. So
Yeah,
it's a little bit challenge, you know, you kind of need to understand that. I think maybe that might be your next question.
it was literally because it sounds like, so it's very similar to the CGC grading scale, which for WATA, it's graded at a 10, and 9.8 typically is the most standard highest, but there are exceptions. There are 9.9s and 10s for the physical comic books, but those are incredibly rare, especially for older comics.
Mm-hmm.
And then flip to VGA, you have out of 100, and a 95 is typically essentially a 9.8. It looks like there's 95 plus, which is basically 9.9, and then 100, which is a 10.0 or 10. And do you see essentially 9.9s or 10s? Do they exist?
Yeah, so yes, they do. They actually exist both in VGA and WATA. I don't know what the population is on 10s, but they are, I mean, maybe WATA has 10 or 15 or something like that. I don't know how many VGA is. I don't see them very often. I don't have a 10 in my collection. 10s do exist. The highest grade that you can get that's not a 10 in WATA is a 98 A++, or excuse me, a 9.8 A++. And so the challenge is, yeah, I saw that, man. Dude, that's so awesome. I told you, man, get it. That's a good one. We can talk about that one too.
Yeah. So this is I'll bring this up because you mentioned a 98 A++, but I'm a huge fan of Grand Theft Auto 3, and we'll dive into the IP later, the significance of the IP. But I was talking to Jason about this one, and he said, "Yeah, definitely get it. This is a good move." And I was very excited.
Well,
for this.
You got it at a good price too, so that's even better. And I know we'll probably delve into like you know, buying raw games versus graded games. I'd love to talk about that, but. So WATA's highest grade, let's take the 10s out, is a 9.8 A++. And that's hard to get. Like people post up like, oh, I have a 9.8 A++. I mean, just because you see them on eBay, I don't know how many games go through the system to be able to pull a 9.8 A++, but it's a lot of games. And, you know, that's a big grade. That's an awesome grade. Okay, so there's 2 things that I want to show you. So the first one here, this is an 85 plus Pac-Man. Okay,
nice.
And so 85 plus is a near mint plus to them. It's gold. It's a near mint plus. But the other thing that is different, and maybe WATA has done this now, I don't know, is notice that this game says uncirculated. So if you were to send VGA a factory sealed case, which I have several factory sealed cases, I'll show you, they will grade those games and denote them as uncirculated. And as a collector, and I've talked to a lot of collectors, we love that. We love the fact that
Oh.
this game was never in the hands of anybody else. They are extremely strict on their uncirculated moniker, meaning if it looks like it's even been slightly tampered with, it will not get an uncirculated. It
Oh,
will
wow.
not say uncirculated. I mean, they are really strict. I've even tried to be like, oh, hey, this could, no. Uncirculated means this thing came from a factory sealed case from the factory, has not even been tiny bit open, not even
Wow.
a snippet. So, but notice this game. So this game, this is Spider-Man Atari. This is a 95 mint. 95 mint.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if this is the highest grade that exists, but man, I
Wow.
think it might be.
Wow.
So when you start looking at like the values, if you look at Heritage Auction, I think like a Spider-Man sold for something crazy, like 20,000 or something. Don't quote me on the price. I don't remember what the exact price. And that was a WADA factory sealed, graded 9.8 A++. And so where the conversation gets into play is that, and it's same in comics, because I know you and I have chatted briefly about like the variations in comic grading scales. What happens is there's a big price point difference and an acceleration of price point between like a 9.4 A++, a 9.6 A++, and we're talking WADA, a 9.8 A++. You see how the prices go like that, right? Well, then it's like, okay, well, what happens the next level? Because now you've got grades that are now above. You know, most people that have these VGA grades will say that these are exponentially better than a 9.8 A++. And trust me, I have 9.8 A++s. I'm happy to get those all day long. It's hard to get. It's amazing to get. But then think about like, how hard is it to get one of these graded this high? So, and this is not even the highest grade that I have in my collection. I have two 95 pluses, and those are gem mints.
Wow.
So, and those are Atari games. And if you want to talk about how hard it is to get an Atari game, even factory sealed from the case, they're concave and they have dings and all kinds of weird issues with them. So it's tough to get that kind. And so those are some of the things that have been conversation pieces around, you know, from a collector's standpoint over the years, and ever since, you know, WADA has kind of started, like how do these two compare to each other? But at the end of the day, they both are great companies. Love them both. They're both awesome for the community. It's great because now we're having these conversations about this stuff and bringing more folks into this.
Was that Spider-Man game? Was it the first time Spider-Man was in a video game? Because it was Atari.
Yeah.
It looked like it.
You told me, you said don't mention first appearance.
Well, Spider-Man's okay. Batman will live up the table.
Yeah, so this is the first appearance of Spider-Man.
And in video game format.
Yeah. So this one's a good.
That's rad.
This is a good one to have.
Yeah,
wow,
that's awesome.
That's so cool.
When I was younger, my cousin had an Atari. They had Spider-Man, and now I wish I could have been like, keep your game.
Wow, that's amazing.
The crazy thing is you can, and this is getting back to open versus factory sealed.
Yeah, right.
You can buy an open Spider-Man Atari 2600 game for 50 cents.
Yeah.
So like,
that's
you know,
crazy.
so. And so that's the other thing, and I know later we're going to talk about maybe some of the modern games and buying and selling some more modern stuff. But you have to think like an open copy of Spider-Man from 1982 actually depreciated because those games were like $50-$60, but you know, retail back then. People don't realize like it wasn't like it wasn't like your grandpa going out and buying gas at 5 cents a gallon. You know, back then, video games were $59.99, $69.99 for a video game. And so then, you know, they depreciate. So an open copy of Spider-Man is 50 cents for the cartridge versus a factory sealed copy with a high grade is, you know, you name the price, thousands, tens of thousands, whatever. So
that's so interesting. You know, that's something I've stressed a lot to the VEVE community is the importance of differentiating value. And that's something we've seen in comic books. You know, is we started grading comic books, and that was only, I think 2000 is when CGC started grading their comic books.
Yep.
But that even wasn't enough. They started doing direct stands and then versus newsstands, then Canadian price variants. And then
Yep.
now you were seeing the video games, you know, sealed video games. Those are truly valuable because there's probably not many of them, especially the older games.
Yep.
You know, especially when it comes to comic books, you know, the majority of high printed comics are typically less valuable because they're less scarce. But it's different with video games because when you open the game, it loses tremendous value. Would you recommend that new investors, if they want to look at more like modern games, maybe like raw games, maybe look at some of the highest selling games of all time as a reference for potential long-term investments?
I think it's going to be really tough for modern games to get that high organically. And the reason that I think so, let me give you a little history on grading stuff. And I think this will allow your audience to kind of put this in perspective. So in the 70s, companies started grading money. Are you familiar with the money system and grading money? So just like comic books, they grade money. And if you have rare dollars or rare coinage, they graded dollars and coins. So if you've ever seen graded coins, they do the same thing, and it causes an exponential value increase on higher graded coins. That was started in the 70s, and they still grade coins and money today, and they're still, some of them are millions of dollars, and that's why a lot of ultra wealthy people, they speculate and they put their money into these coins, because some of these coins are tens of millions of dollars.
Oh, wow.
And then so in the 80s they started grading stamps. And so you can buy and sell graded stamps. Same thing, same concept. All these things for you and your community, liken them back to grading comics. And then in 1991, in the 90s, they started grading cards. So PSA, and you hear all the card grading stuff. And then you brought up the comic books were started in the in the early 2000s. They started grading comics. Video games did not started grading toys in the early 2000s as well. They started grading video games in 2006 or 2007, and they started grading VHS tapes a year ago. So, like, my point is if you look at this as a whole, as an entirety, and you look at if you look at the hobby as like, hey, I want to make money, what do I buy? There's a certain thing that you're going to want to do, and there's certain, kind of things that you want to look at from a speculation standpoint. But if you're looking at it from kind of a where this is going period, just look back. Look at how value, the first 5 years that they started grading coins like that, those weren't probably tens of millions of dollars. The same when PSA start. This is one of the things that kill me well, we'll talk about that later. But so then when PSA and Beckett's came around, when Beckett's first came out and started grading cards, like, people were like, nah, we like PSA. Now you're like, oh wow, I'll take it. So like you see where the hobbies of each have gone, and so when you start looking at like the graded stuff, we're kind of early, but not in the sense of will we see, like, and I'm not saying we won't, because anything's possible, but like, if somebody finds that very first print of Mario and finds that it exists and it happens to be factory sealed and whatever grade it's on, that thing's going to be worth, who knows, and maybe, that's obviously a museum piece, but will there be any modern games that get to that level? I don't think so, but there are, and we'll go through examples if you want, of games that will get to, like you can 10x or 50x or 100x if you're looking for that to get out of, a video game collection or a collectible. That's very possible. And I actually see it all the time. I have stuff that, has gone up a lot. And then you add a grade onto it and a rarity onto that. There's a lot of room for growth, but you're not going to have like this overproduced, oversaturated market. It's always going to be somewhat limited from that. And so then you take out like, okay, they produced like 1,000,000 Marios or whatever the number is. But you also have to think like, the population used to be 4 billion people not that long ago. Now it's rolling up on 8 billion people, right? And of all those, so you have a finite number of things that were created, but every year you have that 5-year-old that becomes a 6-year-old, that becomes an 8-year-old, that becomes a 15-year-old, and the population is growing and growing and growing. Well, people love video games. They love it more than they love it more than they ever did, and they're going to love it even more than they ever did 5, 10, 15 years from now. And so you start making money, and you start their Mario 15. Well, I don't know, Mario 40 just came out, and you're like, oh, I love Mario. What's Mario 1 like? What's Mario 5 like? What's Mario 10 like?
Yeah, it's interesting. Grand Theft Auto 5. I just found out yesterday that game has sold over 150 million units. But what I need to find out more information about this, but did that include both physical and digital, which I anticipate, right? So that just shows the demand that this game has. And I'm curious, how many of those games are actually unopened? How many are still sealed in their case? Because when you
Exactly.
buy a
So
game, you open them, you want to play it. Unlike comic books, you can enjoy it, put it back in the sleeve, and it still probably retains its value because of the quality and the condition. But when you open a game, it's done.
And it's even a step further. So think about this. Let's just say a comic book comes out and you really want to read it, but you can pay, I don't know what the modern prices are, a couple dollars, upwards of 5. Even if a comic book was like $10, you can afford to buy 2 copies and never touch one and read the other. And it's not going to hurt you to do that. These games come out, they're $60 a piece. Not everybody is weird like me and buys 2 or 3 copies and opens one and, hoards two others. That's, most people have never done that, and they can't. It's just not feasible from a financial perspective. It's expensive. And even me, I've found ways over the years, like, I have this massive video game collection, but honestly, like, I have very little in it. And it's because the way that I've bought many of these games, the way that I bought many of them, I've recouped my initial investment, so to say, back as quick as possible. So for example, Target will have, they always do, they have a buy 2, get 1 free. Well, I'll go buy 3, keep 1 or keep 2, and put the other one on Amazon, and it's gone the very next day. Or buy 3, take 2 of them and stick them on Amazon, and then I have the free one left over and I stick it in my game collection. There's all kinds of different iterations of that on many different platforms and through different companies, etc., where you can kind of limit your entry cost into these games.
Is there any lesser known IPs or anything that's a little bit more scarce that you think is like more valuable?
Let's see, the Silent Hill games are always great.
Ooh.
I don't think those are, so you've got these massively known, like Mario and Zelda. Grand Theft Auto would be like a massively known one. Some of the lesser IPs would be like a Silent Hill, those series, a lot of the Konami games. That's actually another company that is a good one to have and to speculate in, Konami games. I would say, so for me, I've got a bunch of old Pac-Man stuff. I actually think Pac-Man is going to trend up, and my speculation is that at some point when the NFTs get into gaming, when they finally create Pac-Man and Mario and Zelda NFTs, I think that's going to push a lot of this stuff through the roof. And so Pac-Man's already pretty popular, but you kind of need to be slightly on the older crowd to really appreciate Pac-Man. Gotcha. But Pac-Man's awesome. I mean, it's, golden age of video games. I mean, if there was maybe there already is, I don't know, but if there was a Hall of Fame of video games, I think Pac-Man would be the first one in, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, like some of the old stuff, is really starting to rise, like Donkey Kong. I've got like old Donkey Kongs. I'll show you a couple of those, like old Miss Pac-Mans. you know, stuff like that. So there's actually a lot, man. To you know, like I'm not big in the horror genre, but I have any horror game that I can get my hands on. So I like them for two reasons, and I collect them for two reasons. And even with my collection, like a lot of the collectible stuff I have, it's because one, I love, or because there's different reasons for different things. But the horror genre, I collect all of those for two reasons. One, I love the artwork on them. Like a lot of the covers are just the coolest covers, man. They really are awesome. So I love the artwork. And then two, man, those things, they don't produce as much. They don't produce as many of those. And those tend to be those tend to really hold their value. I actually wanted to show you a few, like Quan for the PS2, and there's a few others, but those are actually at BGA getting graded, and those are like some big bombs from a PS2 perspective. So having a factory sealed Quan is and this one's in nice condition, so it's pretty sweet.
I remember you mentioned when we talked over the phone, you mentioned PlayStation VR, and specifically like one of the games was the Office game.
Yeah.
And that game's selling for a premium. Is that right?
Yeah, they do. So it's funny because I've been one of the things that's just another kind of a speculation point for me is the VR game. So VR is interesting because most people buy VR on digital and they play VR on digital. And so the first thing that came to my mind was like, I need to find these in the physical. And so I've actually any of the VR stuff that I see, I try to find and collect. Like Farpoint actually came out with a gun. It's a nice big collector's edition set. I need to look that one up to see how much it's worth. It was worth. First of all, you couldn't find it anywhere. Like once the original ones were gone, they were gone. But that had gone up. Like I think I spent like $49.99 on it, but it went up multiple hundreds of dollars within the first couple years that VR came out. I have not looked up the price in a long time. I'm just constantly surprised that every price that I look at on all of these things all the time. I was just looking up a couple things today that I had no idea. I'm like, oh, these might be all right. And I looked it up and I was like, $500. Whoa, what happened? So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to keep that one. So I mean, I'm constantly surprised on this. But yes, VR, in my estimation, if you're looking at something to kind of like put away, I feel like VR games have a really good opportunity, and many of them already are shooting up. So,
especially as VR develops, Sony, I anticipate them trying to try to match, what a lot of other companies are doing. So they'll probably come out with new versions of their VR system, and this will be the OG. This is the first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love Silent Hill, by the way. That's for me, that's my nostalgia. The original Silent Hill. Oh yeah. If I could find one of those, I'd be so happy.
A 9.8 A++ sold for $264,000 on Heritage.
Yeah.
Going back to the crypto space, the NFT space, I am seeing so much buying pressure on physical items created by digital assets. It's amazing. I mean, it's helping the comic industry. It's pushing up prices to levels we've never seen. The toy industry. I didn't even me. I'm like, like on VEVE, you buy some things and then you find out, oh man, there's a real life Todd. Yeah. I'm getting it. Wait, I can't because somebody else bought them all already. Like, okay, well, so then the price keeps going up and up and up, and it's you're like, so what's going to happen is that scarcity is going to play a role in the future of some of these video games, and what is going to happen is that you're going to get more and more collectors in the future that may only have the physical, or only have the digital, and then the digital is going to actually push people into having the physical. And so a lot of people, I collect games and I like the games. I don't know. It's a comfort thing. Like I've got these games and it's a comfort thing. It's also a comfort thing to know, like, if I were to have a financial issue or something like that, I have something to kind of, as you know, keep me a little financially secure. So that's there. But a lot of people collect just from a financial perspective, and that's great. You know, everybody collects for many different reasons, or everybody buys and sells or holds or whatever they do for many different reasons. And so I think like, you know, they're always going to be that aspect of every collector. Like people are going to collect sheerly because there is an increase in the value of it. And if you don't believe it, just look at the art world and the art space. That has been that way since the dawn of time, and it's going to be like that forever. And some of these things could potentially become a future hold of value. And so, you know, maybe like the original Mario's hit a $10 million point and never, and then you have the ultra wealthy that know that this is going to be and retain this value. And so some of these physical or, you know, an Action Comic #1 or, you know, any of these like super high value comics, I think like we're really kind of early in that realm. Like we have no idea where comics could go or video games or even cards for that, you know, that matter. I mean, look at what Charizard's done in the last few years. Look, what could it do in the next 5 years and where could it go? And that's just going to bring up, I think people don't realize like all of these things are connected a lot closer than you would think. And they help each other a lot more than you think. So the video game realm props up the comic realm, and the comic realm helps out the video game realm, and the NFT realm helps out both, and the card realm and all that. Because like, if you don't necessarily have to be a video game collector, but if you love Batman, there's plenty of cool Batman games that are really valuable that you might want to have sitting next to your, you know, comic book or next to your NFT or next to your HRO card or whatever. You know, so I think, you know, from a scarcity standpoint, there's going to be, even if it's digital only, physical's going to still, that's a flex that people will always want to have. Like, oh, I've got the physical. I mean, you see it on Twitter all the time. Like an NFT is released or digital's released, and then boom, people are like, oh, but look at me, I've got this physical. Like, oh man, that's awesome. I didn't even know that it existed. So yeah, I think that's going to be around. That will not stop in my lifetime. Let's just put it that way.
Gotcha.
It's so interesting because we've definitely, this is what clicked for me. Was I know, just like CDs and DVDs and Blu-rays, in the future, the physical discs will be obsolete, which means these could potentially be the last time we see these created, which is really exciting as an investor and collector. And you know, that's something I also think about is, will the next generation of kids right now, will they care about these physical games that are, you know, they didn't grow up with? In my opinion, absolutely. Yeah, because it's connected to their IP and it allows them an opportunity to invest in the things that they love, the IP that they grew up with. And it's just like physical comic books. I can almost guarantee you a majority of people who own AF-15 have never even read the book, you know, especially if it's graded. But does that mean they don't appreciate it or understand the value? No, because this Spider-Man, it's the first time we see Spider-Man in any format. It's his first appearance. So it's truly significant. And just like these games, it's the same thing. But what's interesting is that most of the people probably played these games, which they probably have a much deeper connection to these games than they do with the comic books. But they understand the IP, and especially with, you know, these movies coming out, it reestablishes that nostalgia or that love for these characters. But the video games, especially, man, that's incredible. That's incredible to think about the opportunity here and the upside of this industry.
Yeah, I think there really is a pretty significant upside in the video game collecting portion, because if you look at cards and how high lots of the cards have gone across the board, whether they're sports card, autograph cards, this card, that card, you know, non-sports cards, and then look at comics. Like, look at some of the high prices on comics. Like, they are way up there, and there's a lot of them that are way up there. Like, look at video games. Like, if you look at it, really, even though like you've read off, I mean, you've read off the biggest bombs of the bombs in the video game world, you know, and you've seen the biggest bomb, and you're like, well, there's not really that many yet. And so there's a lot of space. So like what, I look at it, and if I knew what the market cap of video game collecting was, I would say that it's early. I would say that the market cap is low and that it has a lot of room for growth. Relative to some of the others. I think some of the others are a little bit more mature, but then when you look at it, you realize why. They started grading money and stamps, decades ago. They started grading cards, decades ago. And so there's more time. So if you're interested in getting into video games, it's actually a really good time. And so I do we have time? I want to talk to you about the cycle of video games.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Please
Well,
do.
were you going to ask me about that? Because we talked about the Miles Morales game.
Oh, actually, no. Actually, that's a perfect transition because I was just about to say, I've seen some YouTubers talk about don't invest in modern age comics, and I couldn't disagree more. I mean, just like modern age comic books, there is tremendous value in a lot of comic books, modern age comic books, and I'm a huge believer in them. And a lot of it's because, again, it's connected to the IP. But same with video games. Very significant in 10, 15 years from now, this is going to be the games that people played 15, 20 years ago from today. So it's very significant for people.
Like I told you over the phone, like anytime anybody says don't, like you already lost my attention. Like I'm not a don't kind of guy. Like if you want to go out there and invest in rug pulls and scams just because you want to have a coin collection of all the crypto scams that have ever existed, you should be able to. Like it's, who's to tell you what you should and shouldn't invest your money in? Because people invest in things for many different reasons. And so for me, I actually kind of so the don't people are actually really important for all of us. And the reason that they're really important is because there are so many people that are like, don't open your video games, don't invest in this, don't do this, don't do that. That only helps me. You know why? Because you're opening your games, you're throwing games away, you're don'ting everything, and I'm doing. And so like the don't people are really important for us. So like I don't knock the don't people. You kind of lose me at the don'ts just because I'm not a don't kind of guy. This is the cycle of video games. And I've seen this from the very beginning. And so when we talked about the Miles Morales video game, I was like, wait, because here's what's going to happen. And, in 2 or 3 years from now, you're going to go buy it and be like, yep, exactly what you said just happened. So what happens is this: video games are released at a retail price, $49.99, $59, whatever it is, right? And then they're getting sold, et cetera. And you can look at this from Atari to PS1 and N64, NES, every single one, the exact same cycle. And then what happens is stores start dropping the price, and they're like, oh, it's $39.99, $29.99. And then there's a point where stores just want to get rid of it because of whatever reason. The game's getting older, the console's getting a little bit older in the tooth, the new console's about to come out, so prices go way down, right? Or the game was so popular that they came out with the greatest hits version, and they released the 1999 release of the greatest hits. What happens is the stores then have some that are black label version. And I refer to it black label. Any game that's not a greatest hits, I'm old school. I don't know what they refer to them nowadays, but like if it's not a greatest hit, and actually that it's not even greatest hits now, your audience might be like, what are you even talking about? What is you read it?
Game of the year?
Not the game of the year.
It's greatest hits. They still it's essentially the same language. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So like when the greatest hits version come out, it's a slightly cheaper produced version of the game. It used to be like cheaper materials. There wouldn't be a memory card holder. The plastic was a little cheaper. And so they would release it at $19.99. But the black label or the original version, then they would drop the price to $19.99. Anyways, my point is games always go down and to a point where you can get them super low. Even games that were like super popular. So like if you're looking at like games in the future that are going to be valuable, what I recommend you looking at is like the earlier PS4 games. So PS4 games that are kind of early on, middle, or like any like high IP PS4 game you can get for really inexpensive. So like an example, I bought a case of Destiny 2 and I bought the case, I don't know, there was like 24 in a case. I might have bought it for like $30 or whatever. And so I just take that game and throw it in the shelf. Now it's the same in video games as it is in the crypto market. And it's been like this ever since. When something is super cheap, and it's just dirt cheap, people, they scoff at it. They're like, oh, they turn their nose at it. Like, oh, that's only a $2 game. But then all of a sudden, when it becomes 50, 60, $100, they're like, oh, I got to buy it. I got to buy it. And so they won't buy it when it was $3, but they'll buy it when it's $100. So that is a cycle that has rinsed and repeated itself every single time. And so specifically with your Miles Morales game on the PS5, that game you'll be able to buy for like $10. You'll definitely be able to buy it for $10. Like every game that I've ever bought, I cringe at higher than $14.99 price. Like all these games that are hundreds of dollars and hundreds of dollars, like I'm thrifty, and everything I bought, like I don't very rarely will I buy a $20 game. It is $14.99, but most likely $9.99. And so because I'm patient and I know the cycles. So like I will just wait till they go down, and they will go up, and they will go way up. Those I've sold off a bunch of graded PS3 games, and ranging from $700 to over $1,000 that I paid $9.99 for, and then I paid, back then grading was a little cheaper, like it was like $50 or $60 to grade a game, and so you have like, you get them graded at that point, and you have, relatively speaking, you have, much less in it. And so if you just keep that cycle in mind, that is the time to buy. Like just in any other space, the time to buy when the market's down. And so in the video game world, when is the market down? Well, the market is down when PS5 games are kicking up and they want to get rid of their PS4. Target and Walmart, they don't know IP. They don't understand that the Mario game is worth this and the game you've never heard of is worth this. To them, it's either $29.99, $19.99, or what. They're not going to go, oh, I shouldn't clearance this game because it's it's a such and such. They're like, they don't care. They just, PS5's coming out, get rid of this. And so that's the time to go, go to these shelves. I just sold a PS2 Yu-Gi-Oh game. This one, most things don't surprise me, but this one bid up to over $1,300, and this was just a week ago. And I bought that game at Walmart on clearance for $9.99. And it was when PlayStation 3, was well into existence. So these were just some old raggedy PS2 games that Walmart had pulled out, and they're like, hey, oops, we don't know how these things stayed back in the back, but hey, here you go. And so, you buy those, and every once in a while you can find an old raggedy game in a retail shop, and they don't want anything for them. They're just trying to get anything they can out of it to help their, bottom line, and you get lucky. But like, if you're patient and you can kind of hold that, it's, so that's another, like an IP, like a Yu-Gi-Oh, and, stuff like that can be valuable in the future.
This is actually some that I actually, so these are a couple that I actually had in my closet and I totally forgot. I legit was going to just toss them. Like it's Battlefront, it's still sealed. And then Mario.
Dude.
Yeah,
that Mario 8.
Yeah.
That Mario 8.
Good one. Did you look them up?
Yeah, actually, I know I was about to pull the trigger on a 9.8 A++ yesterday, and it sold for just under like $300. And I was thinking about trying to go after it, and then I forgot. And then I saw it sold. But I'm going to keep an eye out for it again, because I know this is one of the highest selling games of all time, the Mario 8.
Yeah, Mario Kart 8 is very popular.
So what you just did, you will be shocked. You just said, hey, I didn't know I had these sealed games. I pulled them out of my closet. So like a little secret, everybody has hidden games in their closet. I can't tell you how many people have Nintendos and old Ataris and Nintendo sitting in their closet from 30 years ago that they're like, who would, I'll always ask, hey, do you happen to have any old video game stuff? And they'll be like, oh, I didn't know anybody would want that old junk. And then boom, here you go, $5 for all of it. And my brother-in-law, he knows that I, collect all these games and stuff. And he was like, all right, they were having a community yard sale, and he went around and he was like, he texted me and called me. He said, what about this game? And somebody just had a regular yard sale. This was just recently, a couple years ago. But for some reason, they had an NES Galaga factory sealed sitting in their garage sale for $1. And it's like, okay, I'll take it. And it's worth, yeah. And so the funny thing is people who don't hear those stories or don't do this, they're shocked when you hear these stories. I'm not. Like, that's how that's how a lot of us build our collections is, we kind of come across those in the raw and out there and out and about networking, or just family members that know somebody that, etc. So
how much does the game go for, you think? Just an estimate.
Let's see, that one with factory sealed would probably, it's not terribly expensive. I think it's in the like maybe the 500 to 1,000 range.
Okay.
Raw. But like this one was like, it looked like it just got pulled out of, Target from, 1988.
So once you grade that
that one's going to get graded. And so that obviously that accelerates the value based on the grade. But think about it. You just to find it in a garage sale out and about for $1, that's amazing.
We were at the Comic-Con, we mentioned it over the weekend, and we heard a story about a guy who found a Hulk 181 comic, which is the first appearance of Wolverine, and as a 9.8, this comic is upwards up to $100,000. And he found it, and he got it. It was a box of comics. Someone just donated, and they said, "You want it? You can just take it." They just take it, and it was in a frame, so he took it. Awesome. And they ended up selling it to a buddy for like $1,500, $2,000. They knew the value, but it's a $6,000-$7,000 comic. Wow. It's a 7.5 grade. Yeah. And
that's
for free. Awesome. Yeah. It's wild.
Let me give you some examples of some very modern things that, because when we chatted and you brought this up earlier, like don't, those folks that say don't invest in modern games. So let me just give you some examples of why it's okay and why there are possibilities. My Fortnite, I have 2 copies of Fortnite, but those are off to get graded. The Fortnite example is too Captain Obvious. Like, you say Fortnite, anybody who collects video games knows that that game has gone through the roof. It's gone through the roof because popularity and scarcity. So that's easy. But here's a couple that people wouldn't know. And actually, I'll show you a couple cool ones that if you're a collector of comic collector, you might be interested in. So this Captain America PS3 game, it's not terribly expensive, but like if you want to cross over, that would be a perfect thing to add to your collection. Now, when I say it's not expensive, like I bought it for like $7.99 or something. I think it's rolling up to $150, and also it's PS3, so it's getting older. But like that one's not hard to find. That one's something you could throw in your collection. It could go with your comic collection. It could go with your NFT collection, etc. But let's go to some of the. This is actually another one. Like if you're a Star Wars fan, like this is a multi-$100 game, collector's edition. It's not super rare. It's not like cheap, but like if you're like. This is definitely going to get graded because it'll go way up from a grade perspective. But this is one you can kind of get into. And then this is one like it's a no-brainer, like high IP, scarcity. You can still get it, but like there's still so much room. Is this going to be $1,000 game in the future? I don't know, but like I think it probably will. It has the opportunity to be $1,000 game, and I don't mean like in the super far off future. I'm talking about like the not too, pretty soon, pretty quickly. These things are all going up like crazy prices. This one right here, this is a rare game. This is a PS3. So why I wanted to show you this is if you or any of your friends ever find this factory sealed, good job. So this
What's
is
going
like,
for raw?
Pardon me?
What's it going for raw?
So this one right here, raw, is north of 1,500. So it's valuable. So when people say like, hey, modern stuff, like, yeah, this is modern, and no joke, this is a $7.99 purchase for me. $7.99. I have 2 copies. So like when you say, was that a good investment? Yeah, probably. I think so. But let's go even more modern than that.
That's just math. It's like
Math at that point.
you can't
I'm
argue
good
with
at
math.
math. I don't know why. I don't know why. So here's a couple others that are, so there are some other companies that produce games, and one of them is Limited Run Games, and I've bought pretty much everything that they've sold, and their stuff is a limited run of digital versions of games. So what they're doing, love the company, by the way. They have lots of cool stuff. They take indie games or digitally released games, and then they actually make a physical version and they sell them, and it's a limited run. So there might be 1,000 or 1,500, etc. So any of I buy all the limited run stuff. A lot of their games were like $24.99, $29, really inexpensive. When they first started, it was one of those where you had to be sitting there. When the timer hit 0, you had to press the button and buy it. It was gone in under 30. It's like VEVE is now. That's how limited run used to be. They've changed their model a little bit, so now there's more chance of getting the games, and it's good because now more people are able to get the games. They probably expanded some of their stuff, but like check into the limited run stuff, because if you're looking at it from well, I texted you the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, the
Yes.
Teenage Shredder game.
Yeah.
I'm definitely getting that. That one will definitely sell out. That one's going to be a cool one to have in your collection for many reasons. And in my estimation, because I've seen what every single limited run game does from a value perspective, I mean, if you want games that are worth $24 when you first get them, and then a year or 2 later, they're worth hundreds of dollars, limited run games is a great place to go and get it. Here's another company called I Am 8-Bit, and this is a very modern game. I would say it's not hard to get, but actually is kind of hard to get now. It's limited release. But this is a PlayStation 4 game that's in the multi-hundreds of dollars to buy. This is like 200 or 250 or something like that. And here's another one, Godzilla. This was an Amazon purchase. It was an Amazon special, $9.99. I bought 2 copies of Godzilla not very long ago. You can't get this for under $500 now. So Godzilla, if you see, so that's another one. And then you have like so Special Reserve Games is another company that produces like limited games. This one's not terribly expensive, but like this was an inexpensive one to buy, but it's like $100 plus game. And the thing is we could go through these examples on the PS4 till you guys are just bored to death of seeing me. So when I hear people say don't, or it's not, or I'm like, okay. I mean the reason I do is because I mean I'm living it. I see these games, I buy these games, and I see them 2 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years later what they're worth, and
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that. I love it's great. So
do you see market trends with speculation? I mean, you definitely refer to speculation quite often in this interview, but like, for example, The Last of Us is coming out as a show on HBO. Have you seen the prices go up as far as the video game itself, the PS3 game?
Oh, so The Last of Us, the early release of The Last of Us high grades north of 1,000.
Yeah.
So let's talk. So that's actually a good question. So there's a weird thing that I've noticed in the video game buying and selling world and realm. And you can tell when it's like bubbling. To me, it looks like it's bubbling. But what'll happen is you'll go look at, and The Last of Us is a good example. You'll go look at a game, and you'll notice that some people are asking $100 for it, and some people are asking $30 for it. And when you see that disparity in the value of price, I've seen over and over and over, it's like the game is bubbling up, it's percolating, etc. What happens is you have people that have no clue about the hobby at all, and they don't know price at all. They just know that they bought this at Target for $19.99. They didn't open it. They're just going to get it $20 or $30 for it. And then you have people who are in the hobby and they understand that. And so so I think The Last of Us is one of those where you can go online and on eBay and get them in the raw for relatively good value, and actually make an not necessarily instant profit, but you can make a quick profit. So like you can still go right now and buy first releases of that game for $40, $50, send them to WATA, send them to VGA, gets a high grade, and then all of a sudden you turn it for $1,000. And so that's kind of an area that you'll see a lot of people who are, that's, like I said, video game collecting is super expensive. And so that is a way for you to kind of fund your hobby going forward, is by flipping those type of things. So like, you know, if you're, so like what I'll do is I'll buy like a case of those, or like 5 or 6 of those, and I'll send off all 5 or 6 of them, and then I'll keep the highest grade in my collection and sell off the rest of them. And those ones, the ones that I sell off, will actually put me in the black for, you know, for all that. I'll actually make a ton of money off of them, and then I'll still have a nice graded copy in my collection. So some of these graded games that I have, like Pac-Man, I actually had multiple of those, and Spider-Man, I had multiple of those. I wish I didn't sell them when I did, but like, you know, I actually recouped my money and made money, and kept the highest grade. And so that's the other thing. You look at some of the grades that I've got, you're like, how do you get all those high grades, you know, in a lot of your games? Because like I only keep gold graded games. So anything under 85 plus, I'll sell. I'm just not excited about that. I want the gold grade. It's just part of my collecting, you know, what I want from a collectible standpoint. And so, but like some of those, I would, you know, like there's a couple games up there that are super rare that I actually had like 10 of them graded and kept the highest one and sold the rest off. Wow. So this is not like an overnight thing. It's kind of just like a long process that has been many, many years. And you know, those are just little tips and tricks to kind of increase your inventory over the years. So,
Jason, I had such a great time today, man. I really hope this is the first of many videos with you, because your wealth of knowledge in the space is just, man, it's so impressive. It's so impressive.
Like we talked about the other day, I could go for days, man. So, and this was fun, man. This was cool. I love to share the knowledge, and hopefully it's helpful for your viewers. And you know, I'll answer questions, and you know, I think, love it. It's awesome.
And also, I think there might be some giveaways we'll be collaborating on in the near future as well.
Yeah. Can I show you a couple of
let's
things?
get some sneak peeks.
So I do. I want to send your audience a few things if they're interested, or getting them interested in collecting games. So I want to actually give away a game.
Nice.
So this is PlayStation 4. It's Mighty Number 9. It's the signature edition. It's a collector's edition. Nice. It's to you know, honestly, like if you were to send this to get graded, I fully expect this to come back high. If it's a WATA grade, it'd definitely be in the higher 9s. If it's a VGA, I would expect it to be gold. But this is a good one, so nice. I want to give this away. So however you want to set that up, let's do that. I'll send that.
Nice.
I also want to give away so this House of the Dead.
Awesome.
So this actually is this is old. I think this might be from the 90s or the early 2000s. So House of the Dead, old video game. It's actually an old Dreamcast video game.
Yeah, I remember that. I played it.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So this is a variant, and this actually came from a case. So this thing is like minty. Wow. It's crispy. And it's also limited edition. So it's a limited edition of a variant. So his Already his head is a variant, and then there's only 5,000 of these made, and this is a numbered edition. And this is actually, if you were to get this graded, this would do really well from a grading perspective as well. So I'd like to give that away. And
Sean, are we allowed to go into these? Are we allowed to get some of these?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Can I go into this?
I don't personally.
Send me your address. I'll send you a couple. And then also, so this is kind of cool. So Kid Icarus, if you collected like the Pit Rally cards, this is from I think the Switch. These are collectible. A lot of people buy these up, and so I'd love to give one of these away. And maybe I'll throw in. I've got some original Pokemon stickers from the early. These are the originals from 1999.
Wow.
So I'll throw in a couple of those as well. But yeah, however you guys want to set it up, I want to send your followers and your fans.
Absolutely.
That's so generous of you, Jason. And we'll definitely keep you all posted on the details for those giveaways. And if you haven't already, make sure to follow Jason at J Rindahl. The details are actually on the video page, but also in the details as well. And his name on Twitter is up crypto.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Awesome, fellas.
This was awesome, man. Thank you so much for giving us
Jason.
your time.
I can't wait for the next episode, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm already it's already racing in my mind.
Yeah. Don't forget to stay awesome and remember, the moon, let's go to Mars. Music is by NineFinger. Make sure to check out their music at NineFinger.com. And you can follow them on Instagram at NineFinger999. Be sure to check them out and send them some love.
Comics and crypto, crypto and comics, collectors world in a digital age. Comics and crypto, crypto and comics is where the next billion